Imagine a world without sound on screen, where eyes and silhouettes told passionate stories. There, Theda Bara emerged, Hollywood's first vamp queen, with penetrating eyes and a smile that whispered seductive promises. She wasn't just a sensation, she was a cultural earthquake that shook America to its core. This wasn't the Egyptian princess Fox Studios marketed her as, but Theodosia Goodman, a Jewish girl from Cincinnati, Ohio who transformed fantasy into silver screen magic. With her daring costumes and mysterious persona, Theda defined the femme fatale archetype, paving the way for icons like Mae West and Marlene Dietrich decades before they graced the spotlight. Theda didn't merely act in films, she became a phenomenon, as if Hollywood invented the word dramatic exclusively for her. In an era when women were expected to be demure and proper, she wielded sensuality like a weapon, captivating audiences with her hypnotic stare while challenging the rigid moral standards of early 20th century America. Though time and tragically lost films have diminished her visibility to modern audiences, her impact remains immeasurable. The bold characters she portrayed, dangerous, alluring women who consumed men's hearts and fortunes, created an entirely new category of film persona. She was, as critics noted, the embodiment of seduction and mystery, performing with an intensity that still resonates through cinema history. Join us as we unveil Theda Bara's remarkable journey from modest beginnings to blazing stardom. From her childhood dreams in Cincinnati to becoming America's first sex symbol, her story reveals a woman who refused boundaries and created her own path to freedom. What was your favorite Theda Bara film or moment? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Behind the mysterious vamp who bewitched early cinema audiences stood Theodosia Bara Goodman, born July 29, 1885, in Cincinnati, Ohio. Her family origins contrasted dramatically with the exotic persona she would later embody. Theda's father, Bernard Goodman, worked as a Jewish tailor who had immigrated from Poland, bringing with him traditional values and skilled craftsmanship. Her mother, Pauline de Capet, hailed from Switzerland, providing Theda with a diverse European heritage that would later inform her cosmopolitan appeal. The Goodman home expanded with the arrival of Theda's siblings, brother Mark, born 1888, and sister Esther, affectionately called Laurie, born 1897. In 1890, the family relocated to Cincinnati's Avondale neighborhood, a vibrant Jewish community where cultural traditions flourished alongside American assimilation. Picture a modest house where Pauline's freshly baked bread scented the rooms, while Bernard's sewing machine provided the household soundtrack. The Goodman family shared tight quarters, but these close confines fostered the theatrical imagination that would later define Theda's career. Young Theodosia stood out even within her family circle. Unlike the exotic, raven-haired temptress she would become, childhood Theda had golden blonde hair and enormous expressive eyes that hinted at her future ability to communicate volumes without words. The Cincinnati Enquirer later noted that those who knew her as a child remember her striking gaze, unusual even then. Her mother often remarked that Theda possessed an innate ability to command attention in any room, a natural performer before she knew what performing meant. The Goodman household valued education and artistic expression, particularly Pauline, who encouraged her children's creative endeavors. According to family accounts, Theda's mother recognized her daughter's dramatic flair early, understanding it as something to nurture rather than suppress. The Jewish Women's Archive quotes a family friend: "The Goodman family provided Theda with the foundation of self-confidence that would sustain her through Hollywood's brightest spotlights and harshest criticisms." While the family maintained connections to their Jewish heritage, they embraced American culture, allowing young Theodosia exposure to theater and literature that sparked her imagination. Bernard, despite his traditional background, supported his daughter's artistic leanings, albeit with practical concerns about financial stability. This tension between tradition and ambition created the perfect incubator for Theda's developing sense of identity, one constantly seeking balance between honoring her roots and pursuing personal freedom. Cincinnati's growing arts scene, provided occasional opportunities for young Theodosia to witness professional performances, each one fueling her determination to someday command such stages herself. A childhood friend recalled, after seeing Sarah Bernhardt perform during a touring production, Theodosia declared she would become even more famous. We laughed then, but she certainly proved us wrong. The contrast between Theda's modest Cincinnati upbringing and her later exotic persona wasn't just a marketing creation. It represented her lifelong ability to transform herself according to her ambitions. The family's immigrant background instilled both practical work ethic and dreams of American possibility, creating the perfect foundation for a woman who would reinvent herself completely in pursuit of stardom. This Jewish girl from Ohio would undergo one of Hollywood's most dramatic transformations, but those who knew the Goodman family recognized that Theda's core qualities, determination, expressive power, and unwavering self-belief, were present long before she became cinema's first vamp. These family foundations provided not just support, but the psychological freedom to imagine herself beyond the limitations of her circumstances. Young Theodosia Goodman possessed an imagination that transformed Cincinnati's modest surroundings into grand theaters and exotic landscapes. While other children played typical games, Theda orchestrated elaborate performances in the family living room, converting ordinary household items into props and costumes for her imaginative productions. Her mother Pauline often remarked that Theda could transform their cramped quarters into magnificent palaces through sheer force of will and theatrical flair. From her earliest years, Theda demonstrated an insatiable appetite for poetry and dramatic literature, often spending hours memorizing verses she would later recite with remarkable emotional depth. Her childhood journals, fragments of which survive in private collections, reveal sophisticated literary interests unusual for someone so young. By age 8, she had developed particular fondness for romantic poetry that spoke of faraway lands and passionate emotions, early indicators of her yearning for experiences beyond Cincinnati's boundaries. School teachers consistently noted Theodosia's distinctive presence in their classrooms. Her third-grade instructor wrote in a progress report, "This child possesses an unusual ability to command attention, even when silent." This quality, later essential to her silent film success, manifested early as classmates gravitated toward her natural charisma during school activities and playground gatherings. The watershed moment in young Theda's development came at age 10, when she participated in a school theatrical production. Cast as a muse in a mythology-themed performance, Theodosia captivated the audience with her expressive movements and emotional intensity. The Cincinnati Elementary School Gazette noted, "Miss Goodman's performance exhibited remarkable poise for one so young." This experience crystallized her determination to pursue performing arts professionally, a bold ambition for a Jewish girl in late 19th century America. Childhood friends recalled Theodosia's penchant for borrowing household items to enhance her impromptu performances. One famous incident involved her mother's prized Swiss silk scarf, which Theda repurposed as a royal robe for an imagined coronation ceremony. The resulting tear in the delicate fabric earned her a stern reprimand, but family members recall Theda remained undaunted, proclaiming the damage a small price for artistic excellence. This early willingness to risk disapproval for creative expression foreshadowed her later boldness in challenging Hollywood and societal conventions. Unlike many children who outgrow theatrical play, Theodosia's passion intensified through adolescence. By 12, she had organized a neighborhood theatrical troupe that performed adaptations of stories she read, charging pins and buttons as admission to backyard shows. These amateur productions became increasingly sophisticated, with Theda insisting on detailed costumes and emotional authenticity from her reluctant neighborhood performers. Perhaps most revealing about Theda's childhood was her relationship with fairy tales and myths. Rather than identifying with passive princesses awaiting rescue, young Theodosia gravitated toward stories of transformative female power. Her favorite childhood book, worn from repeated readings, contains stories of Circe and Medea, powerful women whose allure and intelligence determined their fates. This early attraction to complex female characters presaged her iconic vamp persona decades before she encountered Hollywood. The Cincinnati Public Library records show Theda borrowed books about famous actresses and theatrical productions with remarkable frequency. Her childhood fascination with performance represented more than typical youthful fantasy. It constituted an early blueprint for escape from conventional expectations into the freedom of self-creation through art. This childhood pattern of using performance as a portal to freedom would ultimately define both her meteoric career and enduring cultural impact. The Cincinnati that shaped young Theda Goodman existed as a study in contrasts, a Midwestern city with European cultural aspirations, yet persistent provincial attitudes. As the 19th century drew to a close, Cincinnati boasted impressive theaters, museums, and a flourishing arts scene that provided occasional glimpses into larger creative possibilities. The Grand Opera House and Pike's Opera House presented touring productions that exposed the growing Theda to professional performances that ignited her imagination while simultaneously highlighting the limitations of her circumstances. The Jewish community in Avondale maintained vibrant cultural traditions within the predominantly Christian city. For the adolescent Theda, this created a complex identity landscape. She absorbed Jewish cultural values while gazing outward toward mainstream American entertainment opportunities. This dual consciousness developed her remarkable ability to inhabit multiple identities simultaneously, a skill that would later serve her dramatic transformations in cinema. As historian Daniel Marcus noted, Theda's early navigation of cultural boundaries prepared her for the elaborate identity constructions of her film career. Imagine a teenage Theda watching from Cincinnati's restricted female gallery as Sarah Bernhardt performed during a 1905 American tour. This transformative experience crystallized her ambitions, the internationally celebrated Bernhardt representing everything Theda aspired toward: artistic freedom, public adoration, and escape from conventional expectations. Following this performance, Theda reportedly announced to stunned family members her intention to surpass Bernhardt's fame, a proclamation that seemed preposterously ambitious for a Jewish girl from Ohio. Educational experiences further shaped Theda's developmental trajectory. At Walnut Hills High School, her academic record revealed stronger performance in literature and performance-related subjects than mathematics or sciences. Teachers' notes described her as intellectually capable but dramatically preoccupied, with one English instructor commenting, "Miss Goodman seems to approach every reading assignment as audition material." These academic patterns reflected her growing commitment to artistic expression rather than conventional female roles. The socioeconomic realities of Cincinnati's Jewish community created additional tensions in Theodosia's formative years. While her father Bernard's tailoring business provided modest stability, the family lacked resources for formal theatrical training that might have advanced Theda's ambitions earlier. This financial limitation created frustration, but also fueled her determination to succeed despite barriers. The Jewish Women's Archive documents that Theda developed remarkable self-reliance and resourcefulness in pursuing theatrical opportunities without family connections or financial advantages. Perhaps most significantly, adolescent Theodosia experienced the confining gender expectations of turn-of-the-century America. While progressive-era reforms expanded some female opportunities, entertainment careers remained scandalously inappropriate for respectable young women. Bernard Goodman, though loving, expressed conventional concerns about his daughter's theatrical ambitions, suggesting teaching as a more suitable profession. This paternal opposition created the central conflict of Theda's youth, her internal certainty about her artistic destiny versus external doubts from those who loved her. Cincinnati's geographical position, neither eastern metropolis nor western frontier, mirrored Theodosia's psychological state during these formative years. The city represented both comfortable familiarity and frustrating limitation, nurturing her talents while simultaneously constraining their full expression. This tension produced her characteristic determination to transcend circumstances through dramatic reinvention. As cultural historian Robert Sklar observed, Theda's eventual transformation from Cincinnati's Theodosia to Hollywood's exotic vamp represented the most dramatic personal reinvention in early cinema. Exposure to the era's limited but emerging female role models profoundly influenced Theodosia's development. Beyond Bernhardt, she followed newspaper accounts of women entering public spheres previously closed to them. The early suffrage movement, women journalists, and female entrepreneurs provided alternative templates for female existence outside domestic confinement. These examples reinforced Theodosia's growing conviction that predetermined paths could be rejected in favor of self-creation, the philosophical foundation for her eventual metamorphosis into cinema's greatest vamp. The journey from Cincinnati's Theodosia Goodman to Hollywood's mysterious Theda Bara began with characteristic determination. In 1908, after years of community theater productions and dramatic readings, the aspiring actress made her Broadway debut in Ferenc Molnar's provocative play The Devil. Though her role remained modest, theater critics noted her intense stage presence. The Cincinnati Daily News even published a brief mention: "Local girl Theodosia Goodman displays uncommon magnetism in supporting role." This understated beginning hardly presaged the sensational career awaiting her. Between 1908 and 1914, Theodosia worked sporadically on various theater productions, experiencing the precarious existence typical of struggling actors. During this transitional period, she supported herself through odd jobs, including modeling for illustrators and photographers, experiences that later proved invaluable in developing her distinctive screen presence. A fellow actor from this period recalled, "Even when barely scraping by, Theodosia carried herself with remarkable dignity, as though poverty were merely a temporary inconvenience rather than her actual reality." The watershed moment arrived in 1914 when, under the name Theda Bara, she secured a minor role in The Stain, a now-forgotten melodrama. While this performance generated minimal attention, it positioned her fortuitously for what came next, the role that would transform American cinema and launch the first great screen persona of Hollywood's early era. Film historian Anthony Slide would later write, "Few performers have experienced such immediate transformation from obscurity to stardom, and fewer still have created an entirely new archetype in the process." When director Frank Powell cast her as the vampire in A Fool There Was 1915, neither he nor Fox Studios could have anticipated the cultural earthquake about to occur. The film, based loosely on Rudyard Kipling's poem The Vampire and a subsequent play, featured Bara as an irresistible temptress who systematically destroys a respectable family man. Her character's famous line, "Kiss me, my fool," became a national catchphrase, remarkable for a silent film where such dialogue appeared only on title cards. The marketing campaign for A Fool There Was established the template for Hollywood publicity stunts and manufactured star personas. Fox Studios publicist Al Selig invented an exotic backstory for Theda, claiming she was born in the shadow of the Sphinx to French actress and Egyptian mystic parents. According to this fiction, her name derived from Arab death spelled backward. While patently ridiculous, these fabrications proved irresistible to public imagination. The Chicago Tribune movie critic snidely remarked, "Fox Studios has created not merely a star, but an entire civilization from which she supposedly emerged." Theda herself exhibited remarkable psychological flexibility in adapting to this invented persona. In public appearances, she embodied the exotic temptress, wearing revealing black gowns, kohl-rimmed eyes, and serpentine jewelry. Behind closed doors, however, she maintained her Midwestern practicality. A makeup artist from this period noted, "The transformation was astonishing. One moment Cincinnati Theodosia discussing property values and the weather, the next moment sinister Theda gliding about like some Egyptian deity." Perhaps most significant about Bara's early career was her creation of the vamp archetype, shorthand for female vampire, a woman who used sexuality as power, consuming men's social standing, wealth, and morality. In pre-1920s America, where Victorian values still largely prevailed, this character represented a shocking departure from traditional screen femininity. Film scholar Maria Elena Bushik observed, Bara's Vamp represented America's simultaneous terror of and fascination with female sexual agency. She embodied both punishment and liberation. The public response to A Fool There Was transcended mere entertainment. Women copied Bara's fashion, makeup, and mannerisms, while anxious social conservatives warned about her corrupting influence. Within months of the film's release, Bara received over 1,000 letters weekly from admirers and detractors alike. A Methodist minister in Philadelphia famously denounced her as the devil's handmaiden, prompting Bara's wry response to reporters, "I certainly hope I've earned such a prestigious position." The financial impact proved equally dramatic. A Fool There Was cost approximately $50,000 to produce, but earned over $500,000, astronomical figures for 1915. Almost overnight, Theda Bara became Fox Studios' most bankable star, enabling founder William Fox to expand operations and build the empire that would eventually become 20th Century Fox. Studio executive Sol Wurtzel reportedly remarked, "Theda Bara didn't just build careers, she built entire studios." This initial success generated a demanding production schedule that reflected the ruthless efficiency of early Hollywood. Between 1915 and 1919, Bara appeared in more than 40 films, an average of nearly one per month. This punishing pace highlighted another aspect of her character, remarkable work ethic and professional resilience. Costume designer George Hopkins recalled, while other actresses complained about early call times, Theda arrived before dawn, memorized every direction, and never required second takes. Her discipline was almost superhuman. As Bara's star ascended, her control over her image remained paradoxically limited. Fox Studios wielded near-total authority over publicity, appearances, and even personal life details. This contradiction, being powerful on screen while powerless behind it, established the central tension of her career. Film historian Janine Basinger later wrote, Bara created a character who represented female power while personally experiencing the profound limitations of being female in the early studio system. By 1916, Theda Bara had transcended mere celebrity to become a cultural phenomenon. Her name sold magazines, fashion, cosmetics, and cigarettes. Young women emulated her vamp walk, while young men wrote passionate letters proposing marriage. Yet behind this extraordinary public persona remained Theodosia Goodman, observant, ambitious, and increasingly determined to expand beyond the supernatural temptress character type that had made her famous, but also threatened to limit her artistic growth. Following her meteoric rise in A Fool There Was, Theda Bara's career accelerated with extraordinary velocity. Fox Studios, recognizing their unprecedented financial asset, capitalized on her popularity by casting her in increasingly ambitious productions that solidified her status as America's first authentic film icon. Between 1915 and 1919, Bara starred in over 40 films, many becoming landmarks in early cinema history despite most being tragically lost to time. Carmen 1915, released shortly after her breakthrough, demonstrated Fox's determination to position Bara in competition with opera star Geraldine Farrar, who simultaneously portrayed the character in a rival production. Critics praised Bara's interpretation as earthy and visceral, contrasting with Farrar's more refined approach. The New York Times noted that Bara brought primal passion where others bring technical precision, establishing her ability to transcend her vamp typecasting through sheer performative force. The Galley Slave 1915 and Sin 1915 further expanded her range, with the latter generating considerable controversy for its biblical themes. Contemporary accounts describe Bara portraying both innocent and corrupted characters in Sin, demonstrating remarkable versatility within the technical limitations of silent film. A reviewer from Moving Picture World commented, "Miss Bara conveys transformation through posture and expression with such conviction that dialogue seems wholly unnecessary." Perhaps no production better exemplified Bara's ascension to cultural phenomenon than Cleopatra 1917, a lavish historical epic that remains among cinema's most significant lost films. With an unprecedented budget of $500,000, approximately $11 million today, director J. Gordon Edwards created an extravaganza featuring elaborate sets, hundreds of extras, and most memorably, Bara's scandalous costumes. These revealing ensembles, featuring metal breastplates and diaphanous materials, generated national controversy and occasional censorship. The physical demands of Cleopatra revealed Bara's professional dedication. The ornate headdresses weighed nearly 15 pounds, requiring extraordinary neck strength during long shooting days. Cinematographer John Boyle later recalled, between takes, assistants would literally hold her head up to prevent strain. Yet on camera, she moved with serpentine grace, as though wearing nothing more substantial than silk. When asked about the discomfort, Bara reportedly quipped, "Royalty never complains, especially not when royally compensated." Salome 1918 continued Bara's exploration of powerful historical women, with publicity materials proclaiming her the wickedest woman in the world. The biblical narrative provided perfect framework for Bara's particular talents, allowing her to combine sensuality with historical gravitas. The Seven Veils dance sequence reportedly required 17 takes, not due to Bara's performance issues, but because cameramen repeatedly became too distracted to maintain proper focus, an anecdote Bara herself later confirmed with characteristic humor. When a Woman Sins 1918 represented a significant artistic milestone, as Bara portrayed dual roles, a missionary's daughter who transforms into a notorious courtesan. Contemporary reviews praised her technical accomplishment in differentiating the characters through subtle physical adjustments rather than merely relying on costume changes. The Boston Globe observed, "Miss Bara essentially plays against herself, creating distinct individuals who seem to inhabit different psychological universes." As her star power increased, Bara began asserting greater creative control. In The Soul of Buddha 1918, she received story credit, a remarkable achievement for any performer, but particularly significant for a female star in pre-suffrage America. Though the resulting exotic melodrama received mixed reviews, it demonstrated Bara's ambition extended beyond performance into narrative creation itself. Film historian Kevin Brownlow noted this represented an early example of female creative agency in studio-dominated Hollywood. The She-Devil 1918 pushed boundaries of accepted female behavior on screen, with Bara portraying a woman who orchestrates elaborate revenge against those who wronged her. While tame by modern standards, contemporary audiences found the protagonist's lack of redemptive qualities shocking. A Methodist women's organization in Chicago published a pamphlet warning, "Bara's latest affords women dangerous notions of independence without Christian consequence." Privately, Bara expressed satisfaction at such reactions, viewing them as confirmation of her work's cultural impact. Kathleen Mavourneen 1919 represented Bara's attempt to transcend the vamp image, casting herself against type as an innocent Irish immigrant. The commercial disappointment revealed the double-edged nature of successful typecasting. Audiences rejected the transformation, preferring the exotic temptress to the wholesome heroine. This experience reflected the central paradox of Bara's career. The very success that brought her unprecedented fame also severely limited her artistic possibilities. The Unchastened Woman 1925, one of Bara's few surviving complete films, demonstrated her evolution as a performer. Released after a 5-year hiatus from filmmaking, this independent production revealed more subtle characterization techniques. Modern viewers can observe Bara's remarkable control over microexpressions, communicating complex emotions through minute facial adjustments perfectly calibrated for the camera's scrutiny. Throughout these productions, Bara developed collaborative relationships with key industry figures who helped shape her screen persona. Director Frank Powell, who discovered her for A Fool There Was, repeatedly praised her instinctual understanding of camera dynamics. Theda possesses that rarest quality, knowing exactly how much expression reads at what distance. She calibrates performance by the inch, something that cannot be taught. Cinematographer John Boyle similarly noted her technical awareness, Unlike many actresses who merely perform, Theda understands light angles, composition, and how shadow defines character. The cultural impact of these films transcended mere entertainment. Bara's characters challenged fundamental American assumptions about female sexuality and autonomy. By portraying women who used desire as power rather than weakness, she introduced subversive elements into mainstream culture decades before feminist theory articulated such concepts. Film theorist Lavra Mulvey wrote, "Before women had voting rights, Bara's characters exercised sexual agency that implicitly questioned patriarchal authority structures." Equally significant was Bara's impact on Hollywood's business model. Her extraordinary popularity demonstrated the commercial potential of the female-focused star system. Studio executive Winfield Sheehan acknowledged, "Bara proved women could carry pictures not merely as love interests, but as complex protagonists with their own narrative agency." Her success directly influenced production decisions throughout the industry, opening doors for subsequent female stars to negotiate better contracts and creative control. Perhaps most remarkable about Bara's filmography is its tragic impermanence. Only 3 complete features and a handful of fragments survive from her 40-plus productions. This devastating loss resulted from multiple nitrate film storage fires at Fox's facilities between 1937 and 1945. Consequently, modern audiences must rely on contemporary accounts, production stills, and promotional materials to reconstruct her artistic legacy. Viewing Bara's career through historical description rather than direct experience of her most significant work. Despite her extraordinary success between 1915 and 1919, Theda Bara's blazing career trajectory contained embedded challenges that would eventually alter its course. Perhaps the most significant obstacle emerged from the very source of her fame, the vamp persona that simultaneously established her cultural prominence while severely restricting her artistic possibilities. By 1919, Bara privately expressed frustration about the narrowness of her casting opportunities. A colleague reported her lamenting, "The public wants my soul, but Fox Studios has already sold it with a long-term contract." The ruthless typecasting transformed from career engine to creative prison. While male actors from the era enjoyed diverse characterizations, heroes, villains, clowns, adventurers, Bara found herself perpetually cast as variations on the exotic temptress. Studio memos from this period reveal telling directives, like story must include seduction scene for Bara, and ensure costume reveals appropriate amount of skin. Cultural historian Molly Haskell observed, "Few performers have experienced such profound paradox. Bara personified female power on screen, while experiencing almost complete powerlessness regarding her career direction." When Bara attempted to diversify her roles, audience resistance proved formidable. Kathleen Mavourneen in 1919, where she portrayed an innocent Irish immigrant, met with commercial disappointment and critical confusion. The New York Times reviewer wrote, "Miss Bara appears uncomfortably virtuous, like a tiger attempting to impersonate a house cat." This rejection revealed the double bind facing early female stars. Once established in a particular character type, deviation triggered both audience disapproval and financial penalties. The Fox publicity machine that manufactured Bara's exotic identity became another obstacle to authentic artistic expression. Studio publicists insisted Bara maintain her mysterious persona in public appearances, forbidding her from revealing her Midwestern Jewish background. One particularly absurd directive required her to claim she sustained herself primarily on snake venom and bat wings. While Bara privately found such fabrications amusing, they prevented genuine connection with colleagues and audiences. Entertainment journalist Luella Parsons noted, "The real Theda remains Hollywood's best-kept secret, warm, intelligent, and utterly unlike her screen persona." By 1919, significant industry changes further complicated Bara's career trajectory. Post-World War I audience tastes shifted toward lighter fare, making her intense performances seem increasingly outdated. The rise of sophisticated comedies and adventure serials reduced demand for the high melodrama that had defined her work. Additionally, new female archetypes emerged: the flapper, the working girl, the athletic modern woman, making the exotic vamp seem like a relic from a previous cultural moment. Film historian David Thompson described this transition. Bara represented pre-war Victorian fascination with the dangerous feminine, but post-war audiences embraced liberation rather than temptation. Financial tensions with Fox Studios reached breaking point in 1919. Despite having appeared in over 40 profitable productions, Bara discovered her compensation remained significantly lower than comparable male stars. When she demanded salary parity with actors like Douglas Fairbanks, Fox executives expressed outrage at her unladylike aggressiveness regarding financial matters. This gendered double standard exemplified broader industry discrimination that valued female performers primarily as visual commodities rather than artistic collaborators or business partners. The technological limitations of silent film created additional professional barriers. Without synchronized sound, performances relied entirely on visual expression, a restriction that ultimately limited character development possibilities. While Bara mastered this form, performing with remarkable control and subtlety, the format itself constrained narrative sophistication. Years later, Bara reflected to a friend, "My characters couldn't speak, so they could only express the most primal emotions: desire, anger, triumph." The complexities remained invisible. Perhaps most devastating among Bara's challenges was the industry's casual negligence toward film preservation. Fox stored nitrate film stock improperly, resulting in numerous warehouse fires that destroyed almost her entire filmography. Between 1937 and 1945, multiple fires consumed most existing prints of her work. Tragically, only 3 complete Bara features survive today: A Fool There Was 1915, The Unchastened Woman 1925, and East Lynne 1916, alongside fragments from a handful of others. This catastrophic loss means modern film scholars must evaluate her technical achievements primarily through contemporary accounts rather than direct viewing, creating an immense historical disadvantage. The emergence of talking pictures represented the final significant obstacle in Bara's film career. Though she possessed an excellent speaking voice with classical theatrical training, Fox executives worried her Hungarian-accented speech might shatter the exotic illusion they had constructed. Studio notes from 1927 express concern that Miss Bara's voice does not match her established screen persona. This technological transition provided studios convenient opportunity to replace established silent stars with new talking talent, allowing them to negotiate more favorable contracts with performers lacking negotiating leverage. When Bara attempted an independent comeback with Madame Mystery 1926, a Hal Roach comedy short parodying her vamp image, the industry landscape had already transformed beyond recognition. Theatrical exhibition patterns had changed, audience expectations evolved, and the studio system consolidated power. While the short demonstrated Bara's previously untapped comedic talents, it failed to regenerate substantial industry interest. Film critic Gilbert Seldes wrote, "Miss Bara's performance reveals surprising comedic timing, making one wonder what talents remained unexplored beneath Fox's restrictive typecasting." Despite these multifaceted obstacles, Bara displayed remarkable psychological resilience throughout her career challenges. Unlike many contemporaries who succumbed to depression or substance abuse when facing career downturns, she maintained dignified perspective about Hollywood's inherent impermanence. Her longtime hairdresser reported, "When others would have broken down, Theda simply shrugged and said, 'Well, that was certainly an interesting chapter.'" Her equanimity seemed almost supernatural. This philosophical resilience reflected Bara's consistent clarity about separating her public persona from her authentic self. Unlike contemporaries who internalized their screen images, Bara recognized the vamp as a professional construction rather than personal identity. The psychological distinction provided crucial protection when her career fortunes changed. Film historian Janine Basinger observed, "Bara's greatest triumph wasn't on screen, but in maintaining her essential self beneath the exotic facade." When the facade crumbled, she remained intact, a feat many contemporaries couldn't manage. Beyond her role as America's first sex symbol, Theda Bara's enduring significance derives from her distinctive artistic approach and profound influence on cinematic development. Her unique performance style, characterized by subtle emotional gradations conveyed through precise physical control, established entirely new parameters for screen acting. Unlike stage performers who simply transferred theatrical techniques to film, Bara intuitively understood cinema's intimate visual language. Film preservationist Kevin Brownlow noted, Bara possessed remarkable instinct for screen scale, knowing exactly how much expression registered effectively at various camera distances, a skill many stage-trained actors never mastered. Her technical innovations included pioneering the sustained close-up gaze, holding direct eye contact with the camera to create unsettling intimacy with viewers. This technique, now standard in cinematic language, represented radical innovation in 1915. Director Frank Powell recalled, Theda understood instinctively that film allowed communion between performer and individual viewers impossible in theater. Her hypnotic stare wasn't directed at an auditorium but at each separate audience member. This technique created unprecedented psychological connection between star and viewer, establishing patterns of celebrity-audience relationship that persist in modern media. Bara's physical vocabulary demonstrated extraordinary sophistication, despite silent film's technical constraints. She developed particularly expressive hand movements, long fingers unfurling like exotic blooms or coiling like serpents, creating visual metaphors that communicated complex psychological states without dialogue. A 1916 photoplay article described her distinctive movement quality. Miss Bara's hands speak eloquent paragraphs where others merely gesture. When she reaches toward someone, we sense not just physical desire, but soul hunger beneath. These nuanced physical expressions expanded silent film's emotional vocabulary beyond melodramatic conventions. Her costume innovations permanently transformed screen fashion possibilities. Before Bara, female performers wore relatively modest attire regardless of characterization. Her willingness to wear revealing costumes in Cleopatra and Salome expanded the visual vocabulary for representing female sexuality on screen. Costume historian Michelle Tellini-Finnemore observed, Bara's strategic exposure, bare midriffs, transparent fabrics, metallic breast coverings, created visual archetypes for portraying powerful female sexuality that influenced fashion and film for decades afterward. Perhaps most significantly, Bara pioneered complex female villainy in American cinema. Before her vamp characterizations, female screen characters generally fell into rigid categories: innocent victims, supportive wives, mothers, or comic relief. Her performances introduced morally ambiguous female protagonists who drove narrative action rather than merely responding to male initiatives. Film theorist Lavra Mulvey wrote, Bara's characters operated outside patriarchal moral frameworks, neither punished for sexual agency nor redeemed through sacrifice. They established female desire as legitimate dramatic motivation. This representation revolutionized audience expectations by transforming how female sexuality functioned narratively. In Victorian-influenced productions, female desire typically signaled moral corruption or impending punishment. Bara's characters experienced desire without shame, wielding sexuality as power rather than weakness. Cultural historian Shelley Stamp noted, Bara's performances suggested female sexuality contained autonomous value beyond traditional reproductive roles, foreshadowing modern feminist perspectives decades before their theoretical articulation. Her contributions extended beyond performance into technological innovation. Bara collaborated extensively with cinematographer John Boyle to develop specialized lighting techniques, enhancing her distinctive features. Their experimental approach, using side lighting to accentuate cheekbone structure and underlighting to create dramatic shadows beneath her eyes, established visual vocabulary for cinematic seduction, still referenced by contemporary cinematographers. Boyle later credited Bara with suggesting the specific shadow patterns that became her trademark visual signature. Bara's commercial impact significantly influenced industry structure. Her unprecedented popularity with female audiences contradicted prevailing industry assumptions that women primarily attended films featuring romantic heroines rather than morally complex protagonists. This audience response prompted studios to diversify female character options and reconsider assumptions about gendered viewership. Media historian Galen Studler wrote, "Bara's fan demographics demonstrated women desired visual narratives beyond romantic wish fulfillment, appreciating female characters who exercised power rather than merely inspired male protection." Her marketing innovations permanently transformed publicity practices. The elaborate fictional biography created for Bara, featuring supernatural elements and exotic origins, established the template for manufactured star personas that dominated Hollywood's golden age. While earlier performers had used stage names, Bara's comprehensive identity reinvention demonstrated the commercial potential of complete biographical fabrication. Publicity historian Charles Hyam observed, "After Bara, Hollywood understood stars were not merely discovered, but created through strategic myth-making, establishing publicity departments as essential industry components." Equally revolutionary was Bara's influence on censorship development. Her provocative performances directly triggered organized efforts to restrict screen content, including formation of regional censorship boards specifically responding to Theda Bara films. The resulting regulatory frameworks eventually culminated in the production code that governed Hollywood content from 1934 through 1968. Censorship historian Leonard Leff noted, "Bara didn't merely push boundaries. She inspired creation of the boundaries themselves, necessitating formal articulation of previously unwritten moral assumptions governing entertainment." Her cultural impact transcended cinema to influence broader social conversations about female independence. During America's transition from Victorian values toward Jazz-age modernity, Bara's characters modeled female autonomy previously absent from mainstream entertainment. Feminist historian Lois Banner wrote, "While suffragists marched for political rights, Bara's performances quietly advanced cultural conversation about female agency." Her characters rejected sacrifice, domesticity, and submission, visualizing possibilities beyond traditional gender constraints. This cultural influence manifested tangibly through fashion trends inspired by Bara's screen image. Young women across America adopted kohl-rimmed eyes, dark lipstick, and serpentine accessories despite conservative criticism. Department stores marketed Theda Bara negligées and Vamp perfumes, while beauty magazines published tutorials for achieving her exotic appearance. Fashion historian Valerie Steele observed, "Bara inspired ordinary women to experiment with visual self-presentation, communicating sexual awareness previously considered inappropriate outside theatrical contexts." Professionally, Bara established precedent for self-determination among female performers through her contract negotiations and publicity management. Despite ultimately losing creative control battles with Fox, her well-publicized attempts to diversify her roles inspired subsequent actresses to demand character variety in their contracts. Film historian Anthony Slide noted, "Mary Pickford's unprecedented United Artists contract may seem unrelated to Bara's career, but Pickford closely observed Bara's struggles with Fox, learning crucial lessons about maintaining autonomy within the studio system." Perhaps most enduring among Bara's contributions was her creation of complex female desire as legitimate dramatic subject. Her performances suggested women contained multidimensional interior lives previously unexplored in popular entertainment. By portraying women motivated by ambition, vengeance, appetite, and power alongside conventional romantic longing, she expanded narrative possibilities for female characterization in all subsequent media. Cultural theorist Andreas Hyson wrote, "Bara's performances visually articulated female subjectivity with unprecedented complexity, creating space for women as desiring subjects rather than merely objects of desire." Beyond her artistic innovations, Bara's career trajectory highlighted broader industrial patterns affecting female performers in early Hollywood. Her meteoric rise and equally dramatic decline illustrated how studio systems simultaneously elevated and constrained women's professional possibilities. This historical pattern, brilliant early success followed by limited career longevity, became the template experienced by countless subsequent actresses. Film historian Janine Basinger observed, Bara's career arc wasn't merely individual experience, but structural pattern revealing how Hollywood commodified female image in ways fundamentally different from male stardom. Behind the seductive vamp who dominated silent screens existed Theodosia Goodman, a woman whose private relationships revealed dimensions entirely absent from her public persona. Most significant among these relationships was her marriage to British-born film director Charles Brabham, whom she wed in 1921 at the Copley Plaza Hotel in Boston. Unlike the destructive romances her characters pursued on screen, Theda's real-life marriage embodied remarkable stability, lasting until her death in 1955. An astonishing 34-year union during an era when Hollywood marriages typically dissolved faster than set decorations. Colleagues described Brabham and Bara as intellectual equals who shared passionate discussions about literature, philosophy, and film aesthetics. Director Frank Borzage recalled, Charles and Theda conversed in complete paragraphs about subjects ranging from German expressionist cinema to Renaissance painting. Their dinner parties felt like attending graduate seminars with excellent wine. This intellectual connection contrasted sharply with public expectations that America's premier vamp would pursue torrid affairs with multiple leading men. Their Beverly Hills home, far from the Gothic mansions Bara's publicity materials suggested she inhabited, functioned as a warm gathering place for selected friends and family. The Mediterranean-style residence featured comfortable furnishings, extensive gardens, and notably, Charles's impressive library. Costume designer Claire West, a frequent visitor, noted, Theda's home contained no coffins, Egyptian artifacts, or stuffed bats. Instead, visitors encountered overstuffed chairs, shelves of poetry volumes, and typically, Charles preparing excellent cocktails while Theda discussed current events with animated intelligence. The marriage balanced professional respect with traditional dynamics unique to their era. Though Brabham eventually directed several films featuring his wife, including The She-Devil 1918, he maintained almost entirely separate professional circles after her semi-retirement. Theda supported Charles's ongoing directorial career while focusing on managing their domestic life, a surprisingly conventional arrangement for cinema's original femme fatale. According to director Clarence Brown, anyone expecting theatrical drama between them would be disappointed. Their relationship operated with quiet affection rather than passionate displays. Perhaps most revealing about their partnership was its privacy. Unlike contemporary Hollywood couples who leveraged relationships for publicity, Theda and Charles deliberately maintained separation between public identity and private reality. No carefully staged domestic photographs appeared in fan magazines, no manufactured conflicts generated headlines, and notably, no children complicated their dynamic. This childless state, unusual for their generation, reflected deliberate choice rather than circumstance. A close friend reported Theda once remarking, "My characters devour children's fathers. Actually producing children myself might confuse the public irreparably." Beyond marriage, Theda maintained particularly close bonds with her sister Esther, affectionately called Lori, throughout her life. Despite geographical distance, after Theda's relocation to California, the sisters exchanged weekly letters documented in Lori's private collection. These communications reveal surprisingly ordinary concerns, household management, fashion observations, and family news, expressed with warmth and occasional self-deprecating humor entirely absent from Theda's screen persona. One letter from 1924 includes Theda's characteristic wit. "Darling Lori, yesterday I terrified the grocery delivery boy by answering the door in my morning face cream. He likely expected exotic veils rather than cold cream. Some vamp I've become." Theda's relationship with her mother Pauline demonstrated similar warmth but additional complexity. While publicly supportive of her daughter's career, Private correspondence reveals Pauline occasionally struggled with reconciling Theodosia's Jewish Cincinnati upbringing with Theda's exotic screen persona. Nonetheless, Pauline visited California regularly, staying for extended periods in the Bara household. Domestic staff recalled these visits featured marathon cooking sessions during which Pauline taught her famous daughter traditional family recipes, an incongruous image for fans who imagined Bara subsisting on mysterious exotic substances. Less documented, but equally significant were Theda's friendships with select Hollywood women, relationships characterized by mutual protectiveness against industry exploitation. Costume designer Florence Wasson recalled, Theda formed a protective circle with several actresses, sharing warnings about predatory producers and exchanging practical advice for maintaining dignity within a system designed to commodify female appearance. These friendships contradicted publicity materials suggesting competition between female stars, instead revealing sophisticated solidarity networks operating beneath Hollywood's glamorous surface. Particularly notable was Bara's unlikely friendship with actress Mary Pickford, whose America's Sweetheart image represented Theda's complete opposite. Despite representing contrasting feminine archetypes, virginal innocence versus dangerous sexuality, the women maintained private correspondence, sharing remarkably similar frustrations about artistic limitations and contract negotiations. Film historian Anthony Slide discovered letters in which Pickford sought Bara's advice regarding United Artists formation, demonstrating respect for her business acumen despite their divergent public personas. Professional relationships further revealed complexity beneath Theda's manufactured image. Cinematographer John Boyle, who photographed several Bara features, described her as ferociously intelligent regarding technical aspects of filmmaking. Unlike actresses who focused solely on performance, Theda engaged with camera operators, lighting technicians, and set designers as collaborative equals. Boyle recalled, she understood precisely how shadow defined character and could discuss lighting ratios with complete technical fluency. We never viewed her as merely decorative, but as a sophisticated artist with comprehensive understanding of visual storytelling. Her relationship with Fox Studios executives exemplified professional respect combined with ongoing tension. While publicly maintaining her exotic persona, private communications reveal Bara repeatedly challenging creative limitations imposed by typecasting. Studio head William Fox admitted years later, Theda understood her commercial value while simultaneously resenting the constraints we placed upon her artistic expression. Our relationship combined mutual financial benefit with continuous negotiation regarding character dimensions. Perhaps most poignant were Bara's interactions with her father Bernard, whose traditional Jewish background initially made accepting his daughter's provocative screen persona difficult. Early correspondence reveals paternal concern about moral implications of her performances. However, later letters demonstrate gradual acceptance, particularly after witnessing her financial success and professional respect. A touching 1918 note from Bernard reads simply, "My Theodosia, perhaps I did not understand at first, but I see now how many people you make happy." This is no small thing. This evolution from concern to acceptance represented reconciliation between Theda's traditional roots and revolutionary career choices. Throughout these varied relationships, one consistent pattern emerged. Theda maintained clear separation between public persona and private connections. Unlike contemporaries who internalized their screen images, she recognized the vamp as professional construction rather than personal identity. This psychological distinction allowed authentic intimacy within selected relationships while maintaining the mysterious public image that secured her livelihood. This sophisticated compartmentalization, remarkable for early Hollywood, enabled Theda to simultaneously exist as exotic screen vampire and thoughtful private individual, navigating complex personal relationships within a system designed to reduce female performers to simplified archetypes. Beneath the confident gaze that hypnotized silent film audiences, Theda Bara engaged in complex internal struggles throughout her life. Perhaps most fundamental was her persistent navigation between constructed persona and authentic identity, a psychological tightrope walk few early film stars managed successfully. While publicity materials presented her as mystical, exotic, and dangerous, private documents reveal her continued identification with Theodosia Goodman from Cincinnati. This identity bifurcation created unique challenges described by close friend Eleanor Glynn. Theda experienced moments of genuine disorientation, momentarily uncertain whether exotic fabrications belonged to her publicity materials or actual biography. Living within carefully constructed fiction eventually blurs boundaries between performance and authentic self. This struggle intensified through Fox Studios' extreme publicity tactics, which included contractual obligations to maintain her exotic persona during public appearances. Studio memoranda from 1917 explicitly prohibited Bara from discussing her Midwestern Jewish background, instead requiring her to perpetuate elaborate fictions about Egyptian origins. When questioned about these restrictions years later, Theda displayed characteristic humor. "Eventually I developed a distinct wardrobes, exotic Theda garments for public appearances and comfortable Theodosia clothing for private life. The real challenge wasn't changing outfits, but remembering which version of myself I was supposed to be embodying at any particular moment." Financial anxieties created additional personal challenges despite Bara's phenomenal commercial success. While her films generated millions for Fox Studios, her personal compensation remained substantially lower than comparable male stars or even female contemporaries like Mary Pickford. Financial records indicate Fox paid Bara approximately $4,000 weekly at her peak, impressive by contemporary standards, but representing small percentage of revenues her films generated. This financial disparity created ongoing tension, described by director Frank Powell. Theda understood her market value precisely, yet remained unable to negotiate compensation reflecting her extraordinary commercial appeal. This economic exploitation fueled private frustration she rarely expressed publicly. Health challenges periodically interrupted Bara's professional momentum. The physically demanding production schedule, sometimes requiring completion of her feature films annually, created substantial physical strain. Studio physician reports from 1918 document severe exhaustion requiring brief hospitalization following particularly grueling production schedules. Makeup artist Florence Allen recalled, "The exotic, heavy makeup irritated Theda's sensitive skin, sometimes causing painful rashes she stoically concealed beneath additional cosmetics. Even during obvious physical discomfort, she never complained or requested schedule adjustments." More serious health concerns emerged later in life. Following her semi-retirement from film, Bara experienced increasing digestive difficulties eventually diagnosed as stomach cancer. This condition, which ultimately caused her death in 1955, remained private knowledge among only closest family members and friends. Her attorney Leonard Martin recalled, "Even during painful final months, Theda maintained remarkable dignity, arranging personal affairs with characteristic precision while refusing dramatic displays that might generate unwanted publicity." Her primary concern remained protecting Charles from excessive grief rather than attending to her own comfort. Psychological pressures created by public fascination with her vamp persona generated additional personal challenges. While early publicity embraced public notoriety, including Methodist ministers denouncing her as morally dangerous, the cumulative impact of being America's premier symbol of dangerous femininity created psychological weight few performers could sustain healthily. Studio correspondence reveals Bara receiving approximately 1,000 letters weekly during her peak popularity, including numerous inappropriate propositions and occasional threats from individuals unable to distinguish between performer and performance. This public response created peculiar isolation despite her celebrity. Makeup artist Sam Carlton noted, "Theda couldn't shop, dine, or attend theater without creating sensations. Even veiled and dressed conservatively, her distinctive eyes betrayed her identity, attracting crowds expecting dramatic exhibition rather than ordinary woman completing everyday tasks." This fishbowl existence necessitated increasing home-centered lifestyle, minimizing public appearances unrelated to professional obligations. The transition from silent to sound films created additional personal struggle. Though Theda possessed excellent speaking voice with classical theatrical training, Fox executives feared her Hungarian-accented English might undermine her exotic mystique. When sound technology revolutionized film production, Bara found herself professionally marginalized despite her remarkable silent film accomplishments. Film historian David Thompson observed, "Theda's extensive theatrical training actually prepared her exceptionally well for dialogue delivery. But studio perceptions about her vocal suitability reflected broader pattern of discarding established female stars when technological transitions provided convenient opportunities for contract renegotiation." Perhaps most poignant among Bara's personal struggles was her gradual industry obsolescence despite continuing creative ambitions. Private correspondence reveals numerous screenplay ideas she developed during later career years, including sophisticated dramatic concepts moving beyond vamp typecasting. These creative impulses found minimal industry support, reflecting Hollywood's persistent pattern of limiting female creative contributions. Director Clarence Brown recalled, "Theda maintained meticulous journals filled with character studies and narrative concepts far exceeding limitations of her screen roles. The industry's inability to recognize this creative potential represented tremendous cultural waste." Beneath these professional frustrations lay deeper existential questions documented in Bara's private journals. Having achieved unprecedented fame playing characters who destroyed men through sexual manipulation, Theda privately grappled with implications of her cultural impact. Journal entries from 1925 reveal searching questions about whether her performances advanced or damaged women's social position by associating female sexuality with danger rather than natural expression. This philosophical self-examination demonstrated intellectual depth entirely absent from publicity materials, presenting her as mysterious exotic creature rather than thoughtful cultural analyst. Her cultural positioning created additional psychological complexity. As Jewish woman achieving unprecedented success in early Hollywood, Bara navigated anti-Semitism requiring strict separation between ethnic identity and public persona. While studio publicity completely erased her Jewish background, replacing it with exotic fabrications, private communications reveal her continued connection to Jewish traditions and family celebrations. This forced identity bifurcation created psychological burden, described by cultural historian Neil Gabler. Bara achieved extraordinary success by effectively erasing authentic identity elements most meaningful to her personal formation, a psychological sacrifice required of many early Hollywood minorities. Despite these multifaceted struggles, Bara maintained remarkable resilience throughout her life. Unlike many contemporaries who succumbed to substance abuse or psychological collapse when facing career transitions, she developed philosophical perspective about fame's inherent impermanence. Makeup artist Florence Allen recalled, "When other actresses received negative reviews, they collapsed emotionally. When Theda faced criticism, she typically laughed and remarked, 'Well, at least they spelled my name correctly.'" The psychological durability sustained her through career's inevitable fluctuations. Especially revealing about Bara's interior life were her private artistic pursuits. Following semi-retirement from film, she devoted substantial energy to painting, creating impressionistic canvases focusing primarily on landscapes and domestic interiors, subjects dramatically different from her exotic screen imagery. Art dealer Raymond Stewart, who occasionally handled these works, noted, "Theda's paintings revealed contemplative sensibility entirely absent from her film persona. Her canvases featured subtle color relationships and ordinary moments rendered with surprising technical sophistication for someone without formal artistic training." Her reading habits similarly revealed intellectual dimensions concealed by her public image. Library records and personal correspondence document her particular interest in philosophy and psychology, with extensive annotations in volumes by William James, Sigmund Freud, and Friedrich Nietzsche. These intellectual pursuits contradicted studio publicity depicting her interests as limited to mysticism and exotica. Literary scholar Carolyn Evans observed, Bara's personal library contains surprisingly academic volumes addressing fundamental questions about identity, perception, and social construction, precisely the philosophical issues her career embodied through its elaborate identity fabrication. Throughout these varied personal struggles, one consistent pattern emerged: Bara's determination to maintain authentic private identity beneath manufactured public persona. Unlike contemporaries who lost themselves within fabricated images, she consistently recognized boundaries between professional construction and personal reality. The psychological clarity provided crucial protection during career transitions that destroyed many contemporaries. Film historian Janine Basinger observed, Bara's greatest achievement wasn't her films, but her psychological survival of early Hollywood's destructive potential. Unlike colleagues who internalized artificial personas until authentic identity disappeared, she maintained consistent awareness of performance's boundaries. Following her brief appearance in the comedy short Madame Mystery 1926, Theda Bara made a decisive and dramatic exit from Hollywood. Though being Theda, even her retirement carried theatrical flair. Unlike many fading stars who desperately clung to diminishing opportunities, she orchestrated her career conclusion with characteristic self-awareness. When asked by reporters about future film plans, she famously quipped, "I've vanished so many men on screen that now it's my turn to vanish myself." This clever wordplay on her vamp persona revealed her continued wit even as she closed a significant life chapter. The Beverly Hills estate she shared with husband Charles Brabin became her sanctuary, a Spanish-style villa nestled among towering palms and flowering bougainvillea, worlds away from the exotic palaces Fox publicity materials once claimed she inhabited. Instead of mummies and black cats, visitors encountered comfortable furnishings, extensive bookshelves, and a sunny kitchen where Theda often prepared traditional family recipes learned from her mother. Cinema's original femme fatale developed unexpected passion for domestic arts, becoming particularly renowned among friends for her exceptional Hungarian pastries and Swiss chocolate desserts. Culinary skills inherited from her European heritage, but concealed during her vamp years. Perhaps the most significant post-retirement public appearance occurred during Theda's 1936 guest spot on Lux Radio Theater. The broadcast represented rare opportunity for fans to hear her actual speaking voice, warm, cultured, with slight Hungarian inflection far removed from the exotic tones publicity materials had suggested. Radio historians note this appearance generated extraordinary audience response, with CBS receiving thousands of letters expressing surprise at the pleasant, articulate woman behind the sinister screen persona. Program host Cecil B. DeMille later remarked, Miss Bara demonstrated remarkable microphone presence for someone whose career existed entirely within silent medium, evidence of her fundamental performative intelligence transcending technological boundaries. Privacy defined most of Bara's retirement years, but occasional public sightings generated newspaper columns speculating about her appearance and activities. The Los Angeles Times periodically reported Theda's sightings at cultural events, art gallery openings, symphony performances, and literary lectures, revealing intellectual interests entirely absent from her manufactured publicity profile. Museum curator Leonard Griffith recalled, Mrs. Brabin visited our Egyptian antiquities exhibition in 1937, displaying scholarly knowledge of ancient jewelry techniques that astonished our professional staff. When questioned about this expertise, she smiled enigmatically and replied, "Perhaps I really did live then. Who can say for certain?" This playful engagement with her exotic mythology demonstrated her continued enjoyment of theatrical self-presentation, even in private life. Art provided particular satisfaction during Theda's later years. Beginning with casual sketching in the early 1930s, she gradually developed substantial painting skills, focusing primarily on botanical studies and domestic interiors. Several surviving canvases reveal sophisticated color sensibility and unexpected technical proficiency for someone without formal training. Art dealer Raymond Morris, who occasionally handled her work, noted, "Unlike many celebrity painters producing vanity projects, Mrs. Brabham demonstrated genuine artistic sensibility, particularly in her flower studies, which combined botanical accuracy with emotional resonance." These paintings, typically signed T. Brabham rather than her famous stage name, revealed her desire for artistic evaluation separate from Hollywood celebrity. Her extensive gardens required daily attention, becoming meditation practice rather than mere hobby. Landscape designer Elizabeth Rourke, who assisted with planning the extensive grounds, recalled, "Theda possessed extraordinary knowledge about Mediterranean plants suited for Southern California climate. She didn't merely select flowers for decorative effect, but understood complex seasonal relationships and sustainability principles decades before these concepts became fashionable." The gardens featured specialized rose collections, herb sections arranged according to culinary uses, and meditation areas incorporating classical elements reminiscent of ancient Roman designs, creating living artwork requiring constant creative engagement. Charitable activities occupied significant portion of Bara's retirement years, though she deliberately avoided publicity surrounding these efforts. Financial records indicate substantial anonymous contributions to Jewish refugee organizations during the 1930s and 1940s, reflecting her continued connection with her heritage despite decades of publicity concealing her background. Additionally, she provided financial support for several aspiring female performers experiencing career difficulties, sometimes arranging housing or educational opportunities through intermediaries to maintain recipient privacy. This generosity reflected profound understanding of entertainment industry's challenges for women, particularly those experiencing career transitions. Literary pursuits provided another significant retirement focus. Library records document her extensive borrowing habits, revealing particular interest in philosophy, psychology, and biography. Her personal library, partially preserved through Charles Brabham's estate, contained heavily annotated volumes suggesting active intellectual engagement rather than mere collection. Literary friend Elizabeth Barrett recalled, "Theda maintained correspondence with several authors whose work she admired, offering surprisingly insightful critical observations." One novelist remarked that her analytical letter about his character development provided more useful feedback than professional reviewers. This literary dimension revealed intellectual depth entirely absent from her Vamp publicity materials. Travel represented another significant retirement pleasure, though undertaken with characteristic privacy. Passport records indicate extensive European journeys during the 1930s, particularly focusing on cultural destinations in France, Italy, and Hungary. During these travels, she occasionally encountered Europeans familiar with her films, producing situations she found privately amusing. A hotel manager in Budapest recalled, "This elegant American lady registered as Mrs. Charles Brabham, but I recognized those unforgettable eyes immediately. When I discreetly mentioned admiring her films, she placed finger against lips and whispered, 'That lady vanished long ago, but thank you for remembering her kindly.'" This playful acknowledgement of her former fame demonstrated continued comfort with her unique place in cinematic history. The central philosophical dimension of Theda's retirement involved reclaiming her authentic identity after decades of manufactured persona. Close friends observed her gradual reintegration of Theodosia Goodman's personality attributes, Midwestern directness, practical common sense, and cultural Judaism, without abandoning her sophisticated artistic sensibilities developed through Hollywood experience. This integration process created uniquely balanced personality combining seemingly contradictory elements, practical domesticity alongside artistic passion, privacy alongside occasional theatrical flair, and traditional values alongside progressive social perspectives. Psychologist Harold Bloom, who knew her during later years, observed, "Theda achieved remarkable psychological integration, harmonizing multiple identity aspects that might have fragmented less resilient personalities. This integration represented her greatest personal achievement, transcending Hollywood's typically damaging impact on authentic selfhood." Throughout her retirement years, Theda maintained bemused relationship with her cinematic legacy. When younger acquaintances discovered her former identity, she typically responded with light humor rather than nostalgic reminiscence. Director Gregory Hartman recalled visiting Brabant home in 1947. When my young assistant realized whose home he had entered, he became absolutely starstruck. Theda simply patted his hand and said, "Young man, the vampire you're looking for disappeared years ago. But I'd be happy to offer you some excellent Hungarian pastry instead." This gentle self-deprecation reflected someone entirely comfortable with both her extraordinary past and her present reality. When Theda Bara exhaled her final breath on April 7, 1955, she left behind more than memories. She bequeathed an entirely new framework for understanding female representation in American entertainment. Her revolutionary impact transcended mere performance to fundamentally reshape cultural assumptions about women's possibilities on screen and beyond. Film historian Molly Haskell observed, before Bara, female characters existed primarily as moral polarities, angels or fallen women. Through her vamp characters, she created a third path, women operating according to their own moral codes rather than society's prescriptions. This paradigm shift continues reverberating through contemporary media nearly a century after her breakthrough. Tracing Theda's influence through subsequent film history reveals her indelible imprint on generations of performers. Mae West's sexual directness, Greta Garbo's mysterious allure, and Marlene Dietrich's androgynous power all owe conceptual debts to paths Bara pioneered. Even contemporary femme fatales, from classic film noir through modern psychological thrillers, reflect character dimensions first established in Bara's performances. Director Tim Burton acknowledged, "Everyone making Gothic female characters works in Theda's shadow, whether they recognize the lineage or not." Her visual vocabulary, the penetrating gaze, sinuous movement, and psychological intensity, established parameters still defining how we portray powerful women on screen. Perhaps most significant among Bara's cultural contributions was her creation of the female anti-hero archetype. Before her vamp characterizations, female leads generally represented moral virtues within narratives, their goodness providing emotional anchor for audiences. By portraying women who pursued selfish desires without apology or punishment, Bara established precedent for complex female protagonists whose actions defy conventional morality while maintaining viewer engagement. This character dimension, embodied by Theda's unflinching stare directly challenging Victorian sensibilities, created space for modern anti-heroines ranging from Scarlett O'Hara through Cersei Lannister. Beyond character archetypes, Bara's visual influence permeates contemporary aesthetics from high fashion through alternative subcultures. Her kohl-rimmed eyes, dark lipstick, and serpentine accessories established visual shorthand for feminine mystery subsequently appropriated by countless fashion photographers, costume designers, and makeup artists. Fashion historian Valerie Steele noted, Theda's vamp look created template for expressing female darkness and power that resurfaces regularly. From 1930s film noir through 1980s goth subculture into contemporary alternative fashion. This visual language connecting female sexuality with mystery and danger represents her most visible continuing influence. Her impact on celebrity culture remains equally profound though less frequently acknowledged. The elaborate manufactured biography Fox created, complete with exotic origins and supernatural elements, established template for synthetic star narratives that dominated Hollywood's golden age. Modern celebrity culture, with carefully constructed personas and strategic image management, descends directly from publicity innovations pioneered through Bara's career. Media theorist P. David Marshall observed, contemporary influencers creating elaborate personal mythologies operate according to principles established through Theda's career. The difference being modern audiences recognize the fabrication as entertainment rather than literal truth. A Fool There Was 1915 remains Bara's definitive cinematic achievement, a cultural lightning rod that simultaneously enthralled audiences, outraged moral guardians, and transformed entertainment possibilities. This landmark production, preserved through National Film Registry recognition, continues generating scholarly analysis regarding its unprecedented presentation of female desire as legitimate dramatic motivation. Film preservationist Kevin Brownlow noted, "Beyond its historical significance as Bara's breakthrough, this film represents a crucial transition point between Victorian and modern entertainment. The moment American cinema discovered that female sexuality could drive narrative rather than merely decorate it." Posthumous recognition has partially compensated for Bara's tragic film preservation losses. Her 1960 Hollywood Walk of Fame star, located at 6307 Hollywood Boulevard, acknowledges her pioneering contributions, while her inclusion among 1994 silent screen stars commemorative stamps placed her distinctive visage on millions of letters nationwide. Museums including the Cincinnati History Museum and the Hollywood Heritage Museum maintain special collections documenting her cultural significance through photographs, promotional materials, and surviving artifacts. Curator Elizabeth Weston explained, "Despite missing films, we preserve Theda through material culture, costumes, photographs, publicity materials that continue illustrating her extraordinary cultural impact." Pop culture periodically rediscovers Bara through references revealing her continued resonance within contemporary imagination. References in works ranging from 1950s television episodes through 2024's horror film Maxine demonstrate her enduring symbolic power as ultimate feminine archetype, combining sexuality, danger, and mesmerizing visual presence. Novelist Caitlin Kiernan, whose works frequently reference silent film mythology, observed, "Theda remains culturally available as shorthand for feminine mystery precisely because her films largely disappeared, allowing her to transcend mere performance into pure archetype. The vamp she created exists now as cultural concept rather than specific character." Academic reassessment has substantially elevated Bara's historical significance beyond mere entertainment value. Feminist film scholars including Lavra Mulvey and Marilyn Doan have extensively analyzed her performances as essential texts for understanding female representation development. Mulvey wrote, "Bara's characters, operating outside patriarchal approval systems yet commanding narrative centrality, created crucial space for female spectatorship previously absent from commercial cinema. Her direct camera engagement invited female viewers to identify with." Theda Bara's cultural influence extends far beyond her brief cinematic career, resonating through decades of film history despite the tragic loss of most of her work. While Hollywood continually reinvents itself, Bara's pioneering contributions remain fundamental to understanding cinema's earliest artistic and commercial evolutions. Her vamp persona didn't merely provide entertainment. It represented the first sophisticated exploration of female power dynamics in mainstream American visual culture. Cultural theorist Andreas Hyson observed, "Bara's performances challenged Victorian assumptions about female passivity decades before feminist theory articulated such concepts, creating visual templates still referenced in contemporary discussions of gender representation." This cultural impact becomes particularly remarkable considering the limited surviving evidence of her performances. With approximately 40 films lost to nitrate decomposition and warehouse fires, Bara exists primarily through still photographs, publicity materials, and contemporary accounts rather than viewable performances. Film preservationist Kevin Brownlow called this situation perhaps cinema's most tragic archival loss, a foundational performer whose actual work remains largely theoretical rather than experiential. This absence paradoxically enhances Bara's mythological status, transforming her into cinema's greatest ghost, powerfully influential yet visually ephemeral. Fashion historians recognize Bara's revolutionary impact on female self-presentation during America's transition from Victorian restraint toward modern expression. The vamp look, characterized by dramatic eye makeup, exotic jewelry, and strategic sensuality, provided women unprecedented visual vocabulary for expressing sexuality through appearance. Journalist Marjorie Rosen noted, "Before Bara, female sexual expression remained largely private or professional. After Bara, ordinary women incorporated elements of theatrical seduction into everyday self-presentation, permanently altering America's visual landscape. Department stores marketed Theda Bara cosmetics and Vamp negligees, demonstrating her commercial impact extended far beyond ticket sales. Perhaps most fascinating about Bara's legacy remains her continued literary and theoretical significance despite minimal surviving film evidence. Contemporary feminist film theorists regularly reference her performances when analyzing early cinematic female representation, using surviving production stills and contemporaneous reviews to reconstruct her artistic methodology. Lavra Mulvey's influential essay Visual Pleasure and narrative cinema references Bara as crucial evidence that cinema's earliest period contained subversive feminine narratives later suppressed by institutional Hollywood. This theoretical importance transcends mere historical curiosity, positioning Bara as essential to understanding cinema's evolving relationship with gender representation. Her lasting imprint on popular culture manifests through continuous references across diverse media. From mid-century noir films explicitly referencing her performance style to modern film characters drawing inspiration from her aesthetic sensibility, Bara's influence remains perceptible even when unacknowledged. Director Tim Burton cited her as direct inspiration for Catwoman's characterization in Batman Returns 1992, while filmmaker Greta Gerwig referenced Bara's surviving promotional materials when developing visual language for Lady Bird 2017. These contemporary connections demonstrate Bara's aesthetic sensibility transcends specific era, remaining perpetually available for reinterpretation. Film historians particularly value Bara's role transitioning early cinema from novelty attraction toward sophisticated star-driven entertainment. Before 1915, films rarely promoted performers' names. After Bara's extraordinary popularity, the entire industry reorganized around star power. Media historian Richard D. Cordova wrote, "Bara didn't merely participate in early star systems, she necessitated their development, demonstrating celebrities could generate greater profits than productions themselves." This commercial innovation permanently altered Hollywood's business structure, establishing templates for star contracts, publicity departments, and audience relationship management still employed today. While many silent stars contributed to cinema's development, Bara uniquely redefined American attitudes about female sexuality during pivotal cultural transition. When her performances began, Victorian values still largely prevailed regarding female behavior. By career's end, flappers embodied modern womanhood's emancipation. Cultural historian Lois Banner noted, "Between restrictive Victorianism and flapper liberation stood Theda Bara, a transitional figure who visualized female power while remaining safely contained within fantasy narratives." This intermediate positioning allowed mainstream audiences to process changing gender expectations through entertainment rather than direct social confrontation. Beyond industrial and cultural impact, Bara's significance extends into psychological territory through her pioneering exploration of the shadow feminine archetype in popular entertainment. Before her performances, cinematic female characters generally represented either innocence or explicit villainy. Bara introduced morally ambiguous women pursuing self-interest through sexuality, characters operating outside traditional moral frameworks without necessarily suffering punishment. Psychologist Carl Jung later conceptualized this archetypal pattern as the shadow feminine, embodying cultural anxieties about female power. Film scholar Maria Elena Bushak observed, Bara personified America's simultaneous terror of and fascination with female sexual agency decades before psychological theory provided language for such complex reactions. Formal recognition of Bara's significance came posthumously through various institutional acknowledgments. The Hollywood Chamber of Commerce honored her with a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in 1960, acknowledging her foundational role in establishing Los Angeles as cinema's global capital. The United States Postal Service commemorated her impact through a commemorative stamp released in 1994 as part of their Silent Screen Stars series. The Cincinnati History Museum maintains a permanent collection documenting their city's most influential cultural export, preserving remarkable holdings including original costumes, promotional materials, and family correspondence. Academic institutions increasingly recognize Bara's scholarly significance. Film departments at UCLA, NYU, and Columbia University regularly feature her work in early cinema curricula, analyzing her surviving films alongside contextual materials to understand her artistic methodology. The Library of Congress prioritized preserving her remaining films and related ephemera, designating A Fool There Was 1915 for inclusion in the National Film Registry in 2015, a century after its original release, citing exceptional cultural significance in American cinema history. Modern filmmakers continued drawing inspiration from Bara's visual aesthetics and character construction. Director T. West explicitly referenced her in X 2022 and Maxine 2024, positioning her as spiritual ancestor to modern horror's exploration of sexuality and power. Madonna's erotica-era visual presentation consciously channeled Bara's exotic mystique, while Lady Gaga's early career performances frequently incorporated visual elements directly traceable to Bara's promotional photography. These contemporary references demonstrate Bara's continued artistic relevance despite mainstream audience unfamiliarity with her actual performances. Perhaps most remarkable about Bara's enduring legacy remains how thoroughly she transcended her brief stardom to become something more significant, a cultural archetype representing feminine power expressed through sexuality. While contemporary audiences may not recognize her name, her influence permeates modern entertainment through visual vocabulary, character tropes, and narrative structures she pioneered. Film historian Janine Basinger observed, "Few performers have achieved such profound cultural impact with so little surviving evidence." Theda Bara exists now as pure influence, an artistic ghost whose presence remains palpable throughout cinema history despite the frustrating absence of most actual performances. This persistence despite material absence perhaps constitutes Bara's most fascinating legacy. The ability to maintain cultural significance through second-hand references, theoretical importance, and aesthetic influence despite limited direct evidence. In this sense, Bara transcended ordinary stardom to achieve something rarer, transformation into cultural symbol whose significance operates independently from specific performances. As contemporary digital entertainment faces uncertain preservation prospects, Bara's persistent influence despite material loss offers hopeful precedent that artistic impact may transcend technological obsolescence and physical deterioration, existing instead through continued cultural conversation and artistic reinterpretation.